Uh, so let me quickly start. Thank you guys for joining this session today for ArgoCD to Tekton. Basically, today's agenda is to explore different GitOps tool that what actually we are using in this current ecosystem and this scenario. We are going to demo you how the ArgoCD and what all challenges are there versus how in Tekton the triggers are happening and how you can use that in a automated way. And at the last, we will talk about how Ozone and what as an enterprise Tekton platform, how you can define those in this existing cloud native CI/CD bus ecosystem world. So let me also welcome for today our speaker is Vinod Kumar. He leads the cloud DevOps engineering at Amadeus Lab, and I would quickly give him to start off with a quick introduction of himself, actually what he's doing, how he's representing currently, and short of his experience. Over to you, Vinod.
Yeah, thanks, Neeraj. Yeah, let me share my screen.
Any questions? If you have, just raise your hand in between, and any one of us would be happy to answer those in between the topics.
Yes, you can even post your questions in the chat box as well. Yeah, hope my screen visible.
Yes, Vinod.
Yeah, thanks, Neeraj, for the introduction. Yeah, so folks, hello everyone. So the topic for today's discussion is navigating GitOps, from how we are moving the workflows, migrations, or maybe the workflow revolution we call it from ArgoCD to Tekton. So today we will be discussing about what we are doing with GitOps and how it eases our life with respect to the Kubernetes deployment, and what are the tools that GitOps uses, GitOps leverages, and how we are moving from the traditional GitOps tools to Tekton, and what are the Tekton triggers and pipelines, how it works, and we'll see a short demo of how ArgoCD works and what are the limitations out of it. On the end, we will see how Ozone as a product, which is doing a very wonderful job in respect to creating a Tekton pipelines in the UI form, and we'll see the complete pictures in like a demo, as well as we also have some live hands-on as well. So before we jumping, small introduction of myself, what I'm doing. So I am a cloud DevOps engineer working at Amadeus Labs, and pretty much about I'm an author of one book, which is DevOps tool stack from Amadeus Kindle. It is published, and you can see me over all the tech meetups, or maybe you can call it as communities in Bangalore around Docker and Kubernetes form, and some kind of a CNCF landscape meetings or something. And I have written blogs and articles about DevOps, this tool chain, and SecOps, and implementation of the CI/CD toolchain, etc. And you can follow me over the LinkedIn and Medium sites. And if you are very lazy, you can just Google my name with Vinod Kumar P. You can directly get into my LinkedIn profile. And one quote it's all views on my personal. Yeah. So let's directly jump into the topic. So what is GitOps? So when we say GitOps, those who don't know GitOps, I'll just give you a very short answer. So we know DevOps and we know DevSecOps, or maybe some of we know DevSecFinOps and all. What is it, GitOps? So GitOps is a traditional method. Git is a traditional tool that we are using for our storing our manifest files, or maybe our source code of the application. And with this GitOps model, what we are taking is we are taking all our Kubernetes manifest file, storing in a Git repository, and making that repository a source of truth for all our deployment. In a nutshell, when I say keep our manifest file in Git, and any tool maybe consider as a third-party tool which keep on polling the Git repositories, for as and when there is any change, it will take the latest changes and deploy in the Kubernetes clusters. And why we are following this approach, what extra benefit that we are getting with this respect to GitOps model is that without GitOps, how we are doing our deployment, we will be having one CI pipeline, and we will use some CD tool, maybe in case of traditional open source tool, that is Jenkins or Azure DevOps, or maybe Travis, Bamboo, whatever the CD tool. As and when we do deployment, we'll take the artifacts from the CI server to the destination server through the integration tool, and we will do the deployment. Or else, if very traditional model, we directly leg into the Kubernetes pods and directly like maybe the nodes will do the kubectl apply -f with the manifest file. So it's all kind of a manual work that we are doing, and it doesn't have any control over the what is it, deployment cycle, or maybe the accountability part, like who has done the changes, and it is quite complex to manage all these things. So that is when the GitOps come to the picture to automate the complete framework, maybe the deployment part, keeping the Git as a source of truth for all the deployments or kind of updates or rollbacks. And as and when we see anything which is deployed in the Kubernetes cluster, we can see the same template in the Git repository within the frequency of maybe 3 minutes in case of ArgoCD, and other tools which has very limited cycle. As and when we do the changes in the Git, it will automatically deploy the same kind of a manifest file in the Kubernetes clusters. So that's when I say earlier models was push-based model. Like as and when we do the build, we will push the artifact for the deployment. Here it is in the reverse case. GitOps operator, maybe in case of ArgoCD, Flux, or whatever it is, it will hold the Kubernetes, the GitHub repositories, whatever the Git source of truth that we are using, it will pull the changes and deploy it automatically. And one more thing I'm saying, it is a declarative model. What is declarative? So we keep all our manifest file in the form of configurations. Keep information in the configuration file, not as a one source of truth. Like it can be a manifest file in terms of config maps, in terms of a stateful set, or in terms of like any kind of like routes or ingress, or maybe your other Kubernetes objects. We can keep it as a declarative object way. So what is the benefit with respect to any domains it gives? So this will be very easy as and when any domain or maybe any sector which is using a very faster deployments. Whereas in case of health sector, fintech, or many domains which needs a faster deployment. So it is the process to do the faster deployment and enables the speed release cycles, so that as and when there is any issues or with the latest code, we can do this automation and we can simply change the parameters of the Git repositories. It will automatically does the deployment without any hassle. So some of the features of what GitOps delivers. As mentioned, first one is a declarative. So we know what is declarative. That is a main feature, and it is an automated one. As we are using the YAML scripts, so you can take regular YAML script and you can do kubectl apply -f with the YAML files. Instead of that, we keep all our manifest file in the form of configuration files in the Git repositories. You can do the deployment, and it is auditable. This is not a GitOps feature; it is a Git feature, but it works for GitOps and it will enables the GitOps model. So for use of Git, we already know who has done the changes, at what time the person has done the changes, or maybe what makes our application go down. So all these things we can do the audit part for the Git itself. And with respect to GitOps, it is specifically designed for Kubernetes because it is cloud native. So all the Kubernetes clusters, either in case of a cloud cluster, maybe cloud managed cluster, a self-hosted cluster, maybe your private cluster with respect to small make or mini kind clusters, still you can onboard these as a GitOps clusters. And the integrations are very seamless. So earlier I was telling only the manifest file, but what if you want to maintain a large scale applications which has around some 50 applications you want to maintain in a single cluster. So that's when the power of Helm and customize comes in. So you can have your manifest file separately, or you can have your configuration file separately, have your complete Helm template structure for your Kubernetes objects. You can keep that. And this integration is very seamless. You can add your open source templates, Helm templates as well. And it is extensible. You can create custom plugins on top of GitOps, like some of the companies are doing it. Or maybe you wanted to have any notifications or something, GitOps has that features. So what are the tools that like GitOps tools which first GitOps model is? First one is Spinnaker. So some of us know Spinnaker is from the Netflix. So this is the first project Netflix has come up with respect to the GitOps model. So I have used Spinnaker maybe around 3 years back. So that one, it is very feasible. It will have very fancy UI, the workflows it will give and everything. And it is open source and it is a multi-cloud platform after Netflix has donated to the open source world. And it is a variable deployment strategy, works with seamlessly with Git. And it is a web interface. As I mentioned, it has an integration, and as and when do any notification also Spinnaker can do. And we can integrate with a multi platform as well. And second tool which we are talking about is FluxCD. So FluxCD is also like famous one at the time of introduction of GitOps, and it is the same features what Spinnaker has, and some of the features which is specifically for Kubernetes things like declarative approach, and we can add clusters seamlessly, multi-environment, and it supports a multi-dit cluster and multi-tenancy models, which means we can add our own clusters and some of the cloud clusters we can add. So that's how it tops. And coming to the very famous ArgoCD, that's when our most of the discussion which will around ArgoCD versus Tekton. So ArgoCD is a very famous tool for GitOps model, and most of the companies have started using ArgoCD because now it is a stage of a graduation. When I say graduation, there is a terminologies from the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, CNCF. There is any open source tool, if you wanted to promote to the multiple or like a large audience, or to want to make it to the very image, or to the very large forum, first it has to go to the CNCF landscape maturity levels. First, as and when the application starts coming to the CNCF, it will be called as sandbox project. Then it is called next level, we can say middle level, less day. Then it will be graduation. So I remember when I start my GitOps journey, ArgoCD was a sandbox project. Then it moved to the next level, and now it is in the graduation stage. Both ArgoCD and FluxCD is a graduated project. So, and I'm more fond of working with ArgoCD at that times because it offers a lot of features and it has a very good UI, compare your Kubernetes objects and anything. If it fails, right, we can see the status, the hard symbol, hard broken, out of sync. All these features are good with respect to that. So it's a very straightforward, developer commits its code to the config repository or maybe the source of truth repository, and GitOps operator, which is in this case ArgoCD operator, will keep on poll the repositories for any kind of a changes it needs. And as and when it finds any changes, it will automatically do the deployment and make the state same as what is there in the Git repository. That is what the main feature. Even we can see, I said 3 minutes of not downtime, I could not say, it's an unsync time. So manually we can do the sync, but automatically ArgoCD takes it's kind of a bad job. Every 3 minutes it will wait for the new manifest or maybe new changes to detect. So until that, we can even see what are the difference between the previous stages and the current stage, and what are the changes it's gonna do. Or if you are very you wanted to do it very fast, you can directly go and do the sync, and it will does the job. And it is again a multi-tenancy, multi-cluster. And the most good part with ArgoCD is it has a very good UI, but it has some negative things with respect to some integration. That's what we're gonna see in the upcoming things. So we'll just talk about the challenges, and I'll walk you through how ArgoCD integration things and what are the complex things that we're gonna that is offering by ArgoCD, something that ArgoCD might need to improve on their part. So we'll see all these things. First, it is a setup part. Yeah, it is a very tedious process to set up the ArgoCD because you wanted to set up ArgoCD UI, controller, dependency parts. There are a lot of things. Maybe in the upcoming demo, I'll show you what are all the supporting part, or maybe an application it needs ArgoCD to work to trigger. To enable one UI, there is one more part. So there are a lot of things. And configurations also, it's difficult. And mapping of one-to-one pipelines is with the repos, clusters. So that limits the functionality. So I'll add some more points for this one with the UI, demo part. And then the limit support for non-Kubernetes resources. That is known one, but when it comes to any on-premises clusters, so that doesn't provide the support. And notifications part is very, very what you say, bad with the ArgoCD because it doesn't have any notifications. As and when we add, if it fails, it doesn't have any notification. It will just give you kind of a heartbroken symbol, out of sync symbol kind of. But if it had some integration, that would be very good for developers to trigger, because developer don't want to see ArgoCD UI every time if anything fails. That is missing. And the customization, as I mentioned, integration of any kind of a new plugins is a problem with this ArgoCD. And the security concerns. So I would like to take a minute to explain the security concerns and the infrastructure complexity. So infra complexity, we talked at the first point, the setup part. And then the maintenance. So as and when ArgoCD releases the new minor versions, so we might be missing some of the features which the previous version had. So one thing I can talk about is the version 25.0, like which we are using at the long back, had a built-in terminal option. So where we can directly get into the, part terminal from the ArgoCD UI. Under the minor, next version, like the minor version they released, they removed the part because of the security reasons. So I don't understand why it is given and then taken it. And second part with respect to the Kubernetes objects part. So as ArgoCD and GitOps model suggest to keep all Kubernetes objects in repository, but it is not advisable to keep secrets in the GitHub repository, because some organization where they have a policy not to keep their secrets in the repository, because not all organization, all our project owners will have a private repository, because some of the organization which is very transparent to their employees, or some of the cross teams as well, they have it as a public repository. And some concerns, any kind of audit if happens, if we keep our secrets in our repository, that is a challenging part. So that is the security concern which we had it in our one of the project open source projects. So likely we jump into the ArgoCD demo part. So in the interest of time, I have recorded the session. I wanted to make it as a live, but if ArgoCD deployment and like the build-up part, it will take a lot of time to bring in. So I just had a recording. So I'll walk you through what I'm doing in this part. So these are the parts that I was talking. These many parts it needs ArgoCD to function as a CLI, and one more part it needs for a the UI part. And it has on the these are the services it needs. Redis server it uses for the cache, and install its regular ArgoCD deployment objects. So I have provisioned one cluster in Azure, and top of that I have built a ArgoCD cluster. I'm just starting the ArgoCD cluster. So this is how it will look like when you first start the ArgoCD cluster. So it doesn't have anything. It's a very blank UI. You need to set up everything. So why I'm not stressing on the installation part is that anyway it is a tedious process, because it will make you fail multiple times, because sometime Redis will not start, sometime controller will not pick it up some configuration files. So there are some challenges, but some of the upcoming versions they're fixing it. But it is that's why I'm just using infrastructure complexity. So next we're gonna see, we will be adding the repositories. So which repository our ArgoCD operators to keep on poll the changes. So I'm taking one of the public repositories, and I'm adding that particular repository as the source of truth. So I'm selecting the project default, I'm adding the repository URLs, and I'm masking the username and password for the privacy purpose. Once I'm done, I'm adding these repositories. Yeah, then I'll mention the secret part and I'll try to connect it. So we have done the integration part of the repository. Then we need to add the application name, where we need to connect, and maybe inside that repository you might have multiple application. I'm just pointing this application to start. So this is what I'm just starting. Then I'm again back to ArgoCD. Just give the path of the application which I'm targeting to deploy. I'll just make it yeah. So before we do the sync up part, I just want to show, I'll just create one namespace to differentiate the ArgoCD app 1 and app 2. And what are the rest of the namespaces which we have. And I'm going back to the ArgoCD path, and where we have the two files. Do change of the edit path, some of the things, small changes which we have done, and committing back to the repository. So it has pushed to the repository. So I just created the application with this format. This is master-app. So I'll just refresh. Now I don't have any changes, but recently, okay, one more time, we'll sync it. So here is what I have mentioned. Okay, go back to the stage. So the sync part, which I was talking about, there is a two option to sync. So first, we can do it manually. If you do the sync part, we can have this synchronized part, and where we can mention prune, it completely delete the applications or whatever the cache it has to take it fresh application. Otherwise also it will take it automatically after 3 minutes. So as and when we do changes, so I just skip it because I added these two applications. I'm just syncing again. So as and when we found any changes, we directly see. So this is the feature which I'm talking about. It gives the heart symbol. If anything is missing, it will give you this red color below one heart broken symbol. And some of the features out of sync. And if it is rotating, it means it is trying to progress somewhere. And you can see the status of the application in the left-hand side, app status, healthy, sync. And if something goes wrong, it will say red color. So what we are doing, we are going to the particular path where we use two application to deploy, right? So we check what are the replica numbers. So for now, we had 3 replicas. So the other one is coming up. So yeah, now it is synced. We can able to see all 3 parts. So how we will do this change? Directly go and edit either GitHub repository, or you can do the changes over in the UI itself. So I am going here and changing the replicas from 3 to 4, so that we'll see how much time it will take for the ArgoCD to detect it and comes up. So in the interest of time, now we have seen it is out of sync. So actually I just took that sync automatically. I did it manually, so automatically it will take 3 minutes to sync. So just now, in the interest of time, I'm just making synchronize it. So now you have seen this out of symbol came, and one more part status. Because it is a lightweight container, it took very less time. So the problems which I was talking about is the rollback part and the application integrations part and notifications. So in case of the application breakdowns, for example, now that the pods all are coming, sometimes it might go for a crash loop backup, which is an expected state for any application which doesn't have a proper tags and even the keywords. Maybe if we miss to update our Docker repo path, or if it wrongly configured, we will get a notification. We will not be getting notification. Just that UI side, we'll able to see that this part degraded. Or sometimes we'll get a status as crash flow backup status. So these integrations parts are missing, and then there is no proper way to do the complete infrastructure management over with this ArgoCD CLI. And instead of UI, if you wanted to do the changes in the CLI, that is also allowed with ArgoCD. But there are some limitations with respect to, there is no workflow as such to create this pipeline. That's when ArgoCD is working on the Argo rollouts. I'm not sure how it will be effective because it is not released publicly. But in the production, we are not many are using it. So there are something missing. These workflows that we are seeing, it's kind of workflow, but it is just a representation of the Kubernetes object. So if we keep a workflow kind of in the pipes Tekton offers, which we're gonna see in the upcoming slides, it will be very benefit. So these are all the parts which I wanted to cover with respect to ArgoCD. So this much of a limitations it has, or we call it as a challenges or something. So yeah, moving on next, Tekton. So yeah, all of us might not aware Tekton. What is Tekton? What does? So for that introduction, Tekton is a Kubernetes based or maybe kube native open source framework for building reusable pipelines, which is nothing but creating a CI/CD pipelines for application integrations. So it is a very easy one to create a pipeline alone, I'm saying, because there is some complexity with Tekton also, which we're gonna see at the upcoming slides. But it is very easy because the limitation what we have seen with ArgoCD is covered in Tekton of the pipelines part or other things. Then, yeah, as I mentioned, it's a Kubernetes native, like no, it's completely open source model. Then it is the part which I was talking for the ArgoCD and FlexCD was with the CNCF part. But what we are seeing is a cloud cloud CDF, cloud continuous delivery foundation. It is also open source, or maybe the foundation, maybe what can I say, non-profit organization, which will be running over with the ambassadors. All are like non-profitable organization, or like ambassadors, like someone of us, you or me. Anybody can contribute to these foundations, or maybe the CNCF, which is a very famous one with respect to the Cube world. Yeah, so Tekton is an open source project which takes the what are the prospects we talk about the GitOps, and it evaluates the the pipeline framework to the next level. So we were talking about Tekton triggers and pipeline. So Tekton trigger is a component of a pipeline. So when I say pipeline, it is nothing but you consider it as maybe a workflow kind of, like you have the series of instructions to an object, maybe for the operator to work on. Trigger is a one part of pipeline where you can choose either as a webhook trigger or a schedule trigger, or consider in this form like a Jenkins as a policy part and webhook part. Likewise, we can consider. And it has an automated workflows through the event triggers, like how we configure. It's up to us. Either webhook also possible, scheduled also possible. So it will work automatically. And the very good benefit with the Tekton is it has a templates predefined by the contributors. We can reutilize the templates, or we can create our own templates if we are good with our Tekton framework and the CLI, how it works. And the automation and extensibility is very good one with the Tekton. And it is a parameterized, yes, as we know. And I'm going to show you a demo of Ozone part, how Tekton triggers and pipeline works. And there is some flaws with Tekton as well. That is what we're going to see. And dynamic scaling, yes, pipelines runs within the part that can be created or created as needed. This can be relatable when we are working with a load testing part. So if anybody have worked with the load testing, we might know. So for any kind of application to test, we will doing inducing a load to the application to see how much the application is withstanding at the load. As and when the app withstands, we keep on adding the parts and maybe dynamically increasing downsizing the load, so that we'll get the sizing model of the application. With respect to this much of a size of a parts with this capacity, we can do that. So yeah, that's what we can do with Tekton as well. And the things which I'm talking about, Tekton challenges. So I'm projecting Tekton as a good option versus the traditional GitOps models, even the better one, the ArgoCD also will go down if Tekton comes on the next level. And Tekton also has some challenges. So any good product will have its minus. So we'll see what is the first thing. Anything with respect to GitOps model applications, the framework setup. So Tekton as a framework is a very complex one. So like when I say complex, what it means, it's not just the installation and configuration. To understand the Tekton framework, you need to have a very huge learning curve, because text and keywords, and then the project it associated, and if anything fails. So these are all the things anybody who is working with Tekton is fed up. But what it brings is with Tekton alone, which we are working in the CLI, the debugging is very, very complicated, because when we do the logs part and all, we don't see it's completely a Linux screen kind of with a CLI, and lack of GUI. So that is also a problem, because with GUI at least we could have seen some color combinations or some changes with how ArgoCD shows us in case out of sync or are degraded. And the other one is a pre-built plugins missing. That is also a problem. So these are all the challenges with Tekton, but still we can overcome these Tekton challenges and make Tekton get most out of Tekton offerings, maybe the pipelines and triggers. So who solves this all purposes, all these challenges? So that's when we come into the our the hero of our discussion, Ozone, the next gen software delivery platform. So it slashes the pipeline over by 80%. So it's based on Tekton life cycle, the triggers, workflows, or maybe the pipelines, release everything. So it is a Tekton based a tool which will shift the pipeline management. So as we are projecting Tekton as a good tool for the workflow management, to manage Tekton, maybe without UI, it is very difficult. So Ozone as an product, no, offering the UI for Tekton thing, not just limited to Tekton pipelines or triggers. It has more features for us to have our complete, seamless integration of our applications and deployment of our applications through that. And then it has some features with respect to the Pipeline Studio. It's kind of an editor that we use in our Visual Studio, right? Like it has the features, like it's kind of a drag and drop features, and it is also having the own templates. So as and when we do any CI/CD pipelines, mostly we will be using the similar kind of a pipelines, as that the keyword needs to change, as that some of the stages needs to be followed. So we can utilize the pipeline, templates for that. And it has a very good powerful features with respect to the cloud native world. And it can be integrated with multiple tools, and it is seamlessly working on the multi-cloud platforms. And even you can add your own private clusters, your Docker registries, and your repositories. Like when I say repositories, Git repositories, and you can customize your how your pipeline want to behave, maybe when it has to trigger, and you can completely manage your CI/CD framework with respect to Ozone. And learning curve is very less, because it offers a UI like on you, or maybe it is kind of what you say, a drag and drop features, and it's a like no the learning curve is very less, so that you can quickly adapt to the framework, and you can start working on the CI/CD platform in a very short term. So it doesn't need any like a large learning curve as Tekton needs, or maybe any other application needs. Yeah.
Would be happy, to take any questions if you have another, 2 minutes, or else we would be happy to, get your email. You can sign up and, try the platform.
Yeah.
I think we do not have any questions. Thank you very much, Vinod, and thank you very much, everyone, for joining this session.
Yeah. Thanks, Dheeraj, and thanks Ozone for the opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.